Hello, Circularity Check consultants. As you know, as part of the Circular Regions service that we have developed, you're going to be using the Circularity Check tool as part of a circularity assessment of Slovak and Hungarian SMEs. The Circularity Check is a self-assessment tool. It's a diagnostic tool that helps you understand the circularity performance of products and services across various categories. So design, procurement, manufacturing, delivery, use, recovery, and finally the overall sustainability. And this is a relatively short, half an hour long video in which we go through the circularity check questions. And afterwards, I show you how you can access the Circularity Check online tool and how you can register and begin your Circularity Check assessment process. Let's look at the questions you will encounter in the Circularity Check. The very beginning, you will be asked to indicate the kind of user you are dealing with, your customer, which is most likely going to be a company, and then fill out basic information regarding the product or service name, the name of the company, its type, and what its business proposition involves. After answering the first questions, you will be introduced to the first indicator, and that's a composite indicator, meaning that it is looking at three sub-indicators. We are looking at the circularity of design, of procurement, and the circularity of manufacturing. Please, those that you are dealing with services, note that the manufacturing category is not applicable logically to the service providers. It is also important to remember that for a product to qualify or a service to qualify as circular, at least one of these questions should score positive. So this very first question is asking whether the materials that are present in the product, packaging or service infrastructure have been categorized and listed as belonging to the techno cycle or the biological cycle. So this is referring to the butterfly chart that is also shown in your training materials. Essentially, that we are looking at biological cycles that contain materials and products that can be used by living organisms to carry on their life processes. And these are materials and products that can be biodegraded in the natural environment. On the other hand, the technocycle is concerned with materials or products that are so-called feeding the technical system, so which can be dismantled, reused, chemically or physically transformed, and those that are not capable to disintegrate in the biosphere. So essentially, what this question is asking is whether you have a so-called bill of materials. That is basically an extensive list of materials that are required to construct or manufacture the given product or even the surface infrastructure, and so whether this document is available. If not, and if you decide to recommend this process to your customers, please remember that there is a template for the bill of materials available in your training materials and also in the inspiration folder. So this is just a quick illustration of these two cycles and the link to the template. The follow-up questions are asking to what cycle were the product, packaging, and or service, if categorized, whether it's this biocycle, technocycle, or both. Question 9 is concerned whether the product or service has been designed or redesigned for circularity. So essentially, when the planning and design process, whether the whole life cycle of the materials present have been taken into account, and whether these materials have been sourced in a way that is minimizing resource depletion and adverse social and environmental costs. So these include, for example, design for reuse, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and so on. But we are going to spend some more time with them in the follow-up questions. Question number 10 is specifically asking whether certain design approaches have been employed, and we are talking about cradle-to-cradle, biomimicry, the blue economy, products that last, or the natural step. Now, recognizing that these are approaches that are not as well known in our region in Slovakia and Hungary, and that there aren't even companies that would be specialized in that. I think that if you know that a company has employed other strategies that are more context appropriate, for example, the Circo that I know that the project partners have been engaged with, I believe that would qualify as a yes. However, if you would like to point the customers towards these design approaches, in the training materials you will find the links and also a quick overview of what they mean. The following questions concern whether the product and its packaging are certified by Cradle to Cradle certification, and whether there are chemicals present from the Cradle to Cradle banned list in the product. So it essentially these are questions that are concerning questions and answers that you can find in the Cradle to Cradle manuals, and this is the case with this 13th question that is asking whether chemicals that have been assessed as assessed through the Cradle to Cradle material health assessment, whether there is a strategy employed to phase them out. However, given that the Cradle-to-Cradle certification might be too demanding and resource-intensive with the SMEs that we are dealing with, and also that there are no certifying bodies within our region, the project partners during the training agreed to leave this question out. However, of course, this doesn't stop you from looking this assessment up and learning more about it. The following question is asking about the presence of toxic materials in the product packaging or service infrastructure, whether they are present above the limits of EU regulation, below, whether there's a strategy in place to avoid these materials, or whether toxicity is eliminated by design. And so we are looking at the chemicals present in the annex of the EU REACH directive. The 15th question is one of those that are deep diving more into the circularity of design approaches, and is asking whether the product has been redesigned for optimal use, reuse, or recycling. And similarly, question 16 is asking whether the product or service has been redesigned for prolonged product lifetime or improved functionality, and if so, whether you can quantify the increase in the product lifetime or functionality achievement, comparing it to industry average.
Lastly, you are asked if customer voting is used to select the final design.
A circular economy should aim for trustworthy, sustainable practices across the entire value chain, and this is exactly the focus of the second sub-indicator, procurement. The first question within this category is asking whether you have implemented green procurement for this product and packaging, and also whether you can substantiate it, whether you are part of a transparency initiative, or if there are KPIs that are designed for circular procurement, whether circularity and responsible conduct is part of the supplier code of conduct, and so on. The next questions concern how much input for the product comes from recycled materials, reused components, waste byproducts, or from other products or production processes, and whether you can basically quantify how much of these are coming with a sustainability certificate, and how much of these are recycled materials. Question 21 is asking basically the same, but for the input of packaging that is coming from recycled or reused materials. You see, sometimes when you cannot answer the question, you have the option of noting that it's not applicable for your context. Question number 22 is asking whether the product or the service infrastructure but whether it includes scarce materials, and we are talking about the critical raw materials, which are specified also in the further information for this question. and whether the product or packaging contains secondary raw materials that would be coming from ocean plastics. Question number 24 is asking at what geographical scale are you purchasing, or is the company is purchasing components and materials. Now, understanding that this could be a tricky question to answer, that one might source one material or one component from a local environment and the other from regional. It is really an estimation of the company to see where most of its materials are coming from, what's their geographical scale. So where are the majority of components or materials sourced from? Now we are getting to the third sub-indicator of the first big indicator, and that is manufacturing. Again, these questions are not applicable for those who are representing services. Now, in the previous sub-indicator, we are asking about the recycled input within the product or within the packaging. And this question 25 is asking for the efficiency of the recycling processes that were used to produce this input, and whether this input is a result of downcycling processes, or whether this input is a result of upcycling processes, or whether recycled inputs are kept at a high value without minor losses. Then we are asked about how much material value is kept or lost in the production, and not just in the value production, but also in the value chain up to delivery. The following question is concerned also with the water stewardship and water consumption, and is asking about the amount of water that is preserved at high quality during manufacturing, and whether there is whether there is a system in place for water stewardship, whether there has been a water audit provided, whether water shortages are an issue or not at all, or whether you even don't use any water in your production processes. The final question in the manufacturing category is asking for the extent that renewable energy is used for manufacturing. And this is a really tricky question, and project partners recommend that you extend this question and ask from what source this renewable energy is coming from, granted that the producer is using renewable energy, to inquire whether this energy is coming from their own source, from their own production, or whether they are purchasing renewable energy with a certificate that is guaranteeing its origin. And then they recommend asking separately whether the remaining emissions are offset, and whether the company can prove the quality and extent of these offsets, that whether these are certified offsets or whether the company is implementing some offsetting activities that are not actually certified. Now we're at the second indicator, which is delivery. This indicator is asking over what distance does the company transport its products or the services for delivery. Similarly, as we saw in the design category, when we're asking for the distance from which the components or materials are sourced for the product, here in this question it is up to the estimates of the company that you're dealing with, and they should answer what most of their transports are, or what most of their deliveries are, whether they're in the global scale, in the EU, regionally, or locally. Alternately, what the tool's authors suggested us, that they can calculate the average of these transports and deliveries. The following question number 30, is asking to what extent are the product transport and service delivery powered by renewable energy. Now, if you recall the question, similar question from the manufacturing category, it is advised that here you also asked whether this renewable energy is from their own production, if they use renewable energy, or whether they are using renewable energy with a certificate of guaranteed origin. Also, if you're asking about offsetting the remaining carbon emissions, it is important to inquire whether those offsets are certified, or whether these are just some projects whose impact is unknown or not calculated properly. The following question in the delivery category is asking to what extent are materials that are used during the delivery, such as packaging or chemicals or cooling water, to what extent are they reused or collected for recycling. So you see the delivery category was quite short, and now we are working with indicator number 3, which concerns the use of the product or the service. The first question, applicable only to 2 products, is whether the product is a durable good. So whether it is durable or intended for a longer term use as opposed to single-use item or a short-lived item. The following question is asking specifically about the business model through which the customer gets to use the service or the product. So we are essentially asking for which part of the sales of the product or the services does the company employ circular business models, such as product-based services, sharing platforms, pay-per-use, rent, sales, or services with performance-based contracting. The following question is concerned also whether the company offers or facilitates maintenance or repair of the product over its total lifetime. There are quite a few options available here, so make sure you read everything carefully. Question number 36 is asking whether you have a direct relationship with the user, and if so, to what extent. The following question is concerned by the extent of information that is provided about the product, packaging, or service, whether customers can learn about the environmental performance of the service, whether it's clearly labeled, whether these informations are easily accessible. And here are some examples that are provided in the explanatory notes. For example, for products, whether an environmental product declaration is available, and for building materials, whether the materials used in a building are passportized, and also here are some examples of platforms that are helping with the transparency of the value chain of the product. Similarly, as in the previous categories, we are asking to what extent is the use of a product or service powered by renewable energy. And this is a tricky question because, for example, with electrical appliances, it's hard to say whether your customers are generating their own source of renewable energy or not. But perhaps it is possible to answer for those of you who are assessing hotels in the tourism industry or looking at buildings. So you're essentially looking at whether the building itself is powered by renewable energy, and as in previous occasions, whether this renewable energy is generated at the source, that is, whether the building has its own sources of energy or whether it has a certified guarantee of origin. And we have arrived to the 4th indicator, and that is recovery. The first question in this category is asking for the percentage of the company's products and their packaging materials that were reclaimed in the past year at the end of their useful lifetime. So this question is not asking whether the company is part of an extended producer's responsibility mechanism or scheme. Rather, it is asking whether it has its own take or buyback mechanism in place. So going beyond the collective extended producers' responsibility schemes. Question number 40 is asking how efficient the recycling capabilities of materials are after their first product used. Well, whether they can be recycled after their use, and whether this recycling results in downcycling processes or value losses, or whether the materials in the products can be recycled and kept at a high value with only minor losses. Question number 41 is asking explicitly whether the company has a system for take-back management or collection for recycling. And there's also an opportunity that it doesn't even need one. So make sure that you read the answers provided very carefully. The following questions are asking whether after the use in EU is more than about 25% of the product or service infrastructure being sold to markets outside the EU. Question number 49B is asking that if there is recycled content in the product, whether the risk of so-called legacy materials has been assessed. And by legacy materials, we mean materials that used to be legal at the European market, but were phased out after they were discovered to be toxic. The last few questions within the recovery category are asking whether microplastics or oxo-degradable plastics are excluded from the product and packaging. Now here, please note that oxo-degradable plastics are banned in products that are introduced to the European market since the summer of this year, of 2021. So you should pay more attention to the microplastics part. Question 51 is concerned whether any biomaterials that are used in the product are biodegradable in the natural environment, essentially highlighting that untreated biomass is easily degradable in nature and will decompose. But most of the other biodegradable materials, such as bioplastics, can be decomposed in industrial composting processes, and some not even then. So make sure that in case that any biomaterials are used, that there are effective processes that can decompose them, and that they are not contaminating the process. In your materials, you will find some extra informations and publications that are explaining various kinds of bioplastics and their compostability. So make sure to pay attention to that. And we have arrived to the last category, which is sustainability. The first few questions in this category are quite easy to answer. Hopefully, it's asking whether the company has been publicly accused of unfair treatment of employees, suppliers, or partners. And the second question is asking whether it has been accused of tax fraud or breaching the law or not obliging regulations. So a simple yes, no, or I don't know answer. Question number 45 is asking that in case of negative social externalities, whether the company is avoiding these actively or whether they are compensating for them. The following question number 46, is a long one. It's asking whether and to what extent is the company dedicated to sustainability. And here you have access to various different kinds of questions. From whether you have an explicit plan or strategy when it comes to sustainability, whether you're part of transparency initiatives, whether a social audit has been completed at the premises. And the following last three questions of the sustainability category are on this slide, and it is asking whether the efforts for recycling, repair, and maintenance of the product are causing more than 5th or 25% of extra CO2 emissions. Question number 48 is asking whether a life cycle-based assessment has been available to substantiate all these environmental impacts that we've been talking about. And lastly, question number 52 is asking whether the product has been optimized for energy efficiency over its full life cycle. So after we've gone through all of these questions, you might ask, what comes next? So when you're using the online version of the tool, and you'll see in a bit how to access it and how to use it, you will receive a visual representation of the score. So you will have the various categories visualized like this. This is just an example from a test that I was doing. So you have a bar chart and you have a spider chart. And this just gives you a quick picture into the overall circularity performance, and you can, based on this, you can have a quick entry point to preparing your analysis and report. Let's see how we can access and work with the Circularity Check tool online. It's pretty simple. What you need is a good internet connection and a browser or a search engine. There, you type in www.ecopreneur.eu, And this takes you to the website of Ecopreneur, who is one of the main authors of the Circularity Check tool. Once you're at their website, you can hover over or click on Publications, and you see Circularity Check over here. So you click on that, and you are brought to the landing page of the Circularity Check tool. Here you can see and learn more about the terms of use of the tool, learn about WeSustain, who is another main partner of the tool and who is responsible for the software. You can learn more about the background, explanation, also give feedback and receive support from the authors. It's always useful to hear also from the authors of the tools. So if you're interested in that and if you have some spare time, you can click here, and this is going to bring you to a webinar recording explaining the tool, the rationale behind it, and how it works. But if you're anxious to get to the questionnaire, you come here. It's a bit hidden, but remember that it's like in the third line. You click here, and you can start the free circularity check for the product or service that you're assessing. First, you are asked to familiarize yourself with the terms and conditions, the terms of use, and once you're okay and accept them, you click on the red button, which is going to take you to the login and registration page. You see, I have already made my account because I have been testing the tool before, but for you to access the tool, you will need to register. And that is also pretty simple. You will be asked to fill in a simple registration form, and after you fill it out and send it, you should receive your access code and your authorization to work with the online version of the Circularity Check within a day or two. But it's pretty fast, I think. I received my access within a couple of hours. So assuming that you're already registered, you sign in. And here you are in the interface of the Circularity Check tool online. It's pretty straightforward and rather intuitive, but I want to guide you through the first steps you need to do if you're starting an assessment or if you're starting or if you want to see the evaluation. So first of all, you will be asked to click here to start a new product or service assessment. This new window opens, and here it is important for you to add the name. Let's think of a cool name. Okay, how about we call it Circo Cool, because circular economy is cool. Sorry, the first silly thing that came to my mind. And it's really important for you to choose what type of the product or service are you dealing with. Is it a product? Is it a product or a service? Or is it a service? Here it is really important that you choose the right option, because the questionnaire is going to unfold a bit differently for each of these answers. See, if you are a service, the questionnaire is not going to show you the manufacturing category, or there are going to be some modifications in the questions. Well, not in the questions, but some questions intended for products will not be listed for a service. So for the purposes of this demonstration, let's click it's a product, because the products have a lot more questions than the rest. So let's click on that. Please do not yet click save because this information won't be saved. What you're required is to do this action and click on this plus sign. You click add, and you will have this new product added. Only now you can click save. So once you click save, your product has been saved, and you see that there is no score yet given to the tool because we haven't answered any questions. If we want to get to the questionnaire, you can either click here on the tool or click straight on the questionnaire, which is the second tab. Now let's see. So here we are. This is the main interface of the Circularity Check questionnaire tool. You see, this is the same list of questions, as you have in your Excel sheets that you have access to in both English but also translated into Slovak and Hungarian. It is expected that after you finish your assessment or during it, you insert all the answers that were given to you also to the Circularity Check tool, to this where we are now, because only in this way will you have access to the visualizations of the score and actually the score itself. Unfortunately, it is not possible to provide the scores as parts of the Excel sheets, because it would be then very easy to replicate the tool and it would violate the terms and conditions of its use. So we are in this interface with the list of questions. You have several options which you can also use here. Say you are doing assessments for multiple products or multiple services. You can switch between them by clicking on this tab, but given we only have our CircuCool product here, it doesn't show up. And what else is important to notice here? You can expand or contract the tabs. If you have any questions answered already, you can hide those so you're not confused by an overload of information. And also importantly, next to most of the questions, you find an I sign, and once you hover over it, or if you click on it, you will have the explanation or some further information provided to you by the Circularity Check tool's authors. In your training materials, we have expanded on some of these questions and given some additional explanations, either to elaborate on the additional information provided, or to provide you some information that are more suited to our Hungarian or Slovak context. So here we are. This is the basics of the Circularity Check, and I hope you will be having fun, not just playing around with it, but in determining really the circularity scores within the service.